You don't have to pretend you wanted this, Minjae. Neither of us did. The words hung in the air like smoke, cold and suffocating. Minjae stood frozen in the center of the bedroom, his wedding hanbok still pristine, the silk heavy against his shoulders. The room smelled of expensive wood and something sterile, like a hospital trying to pass as a home. Seohyun sat motionless in his wheelchair by the window, backlit by the dim glow of the courtyard lamps. His face was unreadable, sharp and beautiful in a way that made Minji's chest tighten. He'd been told Seohyun was cold. Cruel, even. A broken alpha who'd lost everything the night his legs stopped working. But no one had mentioned the eyes. Dark. Unblinking. Watching Minjae like he could see straight through skin and bone. "Aye!" Minji's voice cracked. He swallowed hard, his hands twisting together at his waist. "I didn't expect you to." "To what?" Seohyun's tone was flat, but there was something underneath it. Something sharp. "To acknowledge the truth? That this is a business arrangement dressed up in ceremony." Minjae flinched. He wanted to argue, to say something dignified, but the words wouldn't come. Because Seohyun was right. His family had made that clear 2 weeks ago, when they'd sat him down in the formal dining room and told him the marriage was already decided. His mother hadn't even looked at him when she said it. "It's for the good of both families, Minjae. Seohyun's name still carries weight, even if he..." She'd trailed off, her lips thinning. "Even in his condition. You'll be taken care of. That's more than most omegas in your position could hope for." "Your position." The words had burned worse than any slap. "Before I tell you what happened," Minjae whispered into the silence, his voice steadier now, "subscribe to Obsessed Hearts, and tell me where you're watching from." Seohyun tilted his head slightly, the barest hint of curiosity crossing his features. "What are you talking about?" Minjae blinked, realizing he'd spoken aloud. Heat flooded his face. "Nothing. He turned away, fumbling with the ties of his hanbok. "I'll sleep on the couch. You don't have to worry about anything." "Minjae." The sound of his name stopped him cold. It wasn't harsh. It wasn't cold. It was careful. Like Seohyun was testing the weight of it. "Look at me." Minjae forced himself to turn. Seohyun's gaze hadn't softened, but something in his posture had shifted. His hands rested loosely on the armrests of the wheelchair, fingers long and pale against the dark leather. "I don't expect anything from you," Seohyun said quietly. "But I also won't tolerate you acting like you're a prisoner here. If you want to leave this room, leave. If you want to sleep in a different wing of the house, do it. But don't stand there looking like you're waiting for me to hurt you." Minji's throat tightened. "I'm not. You are." Seohyun's voice cut clean through the lie. "You've been shaking since you walked in." Minjae looked down at his hands. He hadn't realized. His fingers were trembling, pale and weak in the low light. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "For what?" "For this. For being..." He stopped himself, biting down hard on the inside of his cheek. "For being the omega no one wanted. For being the one his family used to secure a deal. For carrying a secret so heavy it had bent his spine for 2 years. Seohyun was silent for a long moment. Then, with a slow, deliberate motion, he wheeled himself closer. The sound of the wheels against the floor was unnervingly loud. He stopped a few feet away. Close enough that Minjae could see the faint shadows under his eyes, the exhaustion etched into the lines of his face. "You don't owe me apologies, Minjae." Seohyun's voice was softer now, almost gentle. "And you don't owe me explanations." "Not yet. Not yet." The words sent a chill down Minji's spine. "Does he know?" No. He couldn't. No one knew. Minjae had made sure of that. "Get some sleep," Seohyun said, turning his chair toward the adjoining room. "There's a second bedroom through that door. Use it if you'd prefer." "Wait." Seohyun paused, glancing back over his shoulder. Minji's voice was barely audible. "Why did you agree to this? The marriage, I mean. You could have refused." For the first time, something flickered across Seohyun's expression. It was gone too quickly to name, but Minjae felt it like a hand around his heart. "Because," Seohyun said quietly, "sometimes the cage you choose is safer than the one they build for you." He disappeared into the shadows of the next room, leaving Minjae alone with the echo of his words. Morning came too quickly. Minjae woke to the sound of rain against the windows and the low murmur of voices outside the bedroom door. He sat up slowly, his body stiff from a restless night spent on the couch. The wedding hanbok lay folded neatly on the chair. Someone had come in while he slept. The realization made his skin crawl. He dressed quickly in the plain clothes that had been left for him, dark slacks, and a soft gray sweater that smelled faintly of lavender. When he finally opened the door, he found Seohyun already in the hallway, his wheelchair positioned near the top of the stairs. A middle-aged woman in a crisp uniform stood beside him, speaking in low, clipped tones. She glanced at Minjae as he approached, her expression polite but cold. "Good morning," Minjae said quietly. The woman didn't respond. She turned back to Seohyun, finishing whatever she'd been saying, then walked past Minjae without a word. Seohyun watched her go, his jaw tight. Then he turned to Minjae. "Hungry?" Minjae nodded, though his stomach felt like stone. "Come on, then." Seohyun wheeled himself toward the elevator at the end of the hall. Minjae followed, his footsteps too loud against the polished floor. The house was massive, all high ceilings and dark wood, the kind of place that swallowed sound and made you feel small. They ate breakfast in silence in a dining room that could have seated 20. The food was beautiful, delicate rice porridge, grilled fish, seasoned vegetables. But Minjae could barely taste it. He kept catching the eyes of the servants who moved in and out of the room, their gazes sharp and judgmental. One of them, a younger woman, whispered something to her companion as she cleared a plate. Minjae didn't catch the words, but he saw the way her eyes flicked toward Seohyun's wheelchair. His hands tightened around his chopsticks. "Ignore them," Seohyun said without looking up. Minjae startled. "I wasn't." "Yes, you were." Seohyun set down his spoon with a soft clink. "They talk. They always have. It doesn't matter. It matters to me." Seohyun finally looked at him, something unreadable in his eyes. "Why?" "Because you defended me last night. Because you didn't treat me like I was nothing." Minjae didn't say any of that. Instead, he looked down at his untouched food. I don't like people speaking about you that way." Seohyun was quiet for a moment. Then, so softly Minjae almost missed it, he said, "Thank you." The rest of the morning passed in a strange, uncomfortable routine. Minjae was given a tour of the estate by the same cold woman from earlier, Seohyun's head of staff, apparently. She showed him the gardens, the library, the kitchen, all with the same detached politeness. But it was when they returned to Seohyun's wing that Minji's role became clear. "You'll assist him with his daily needs," the woman said, gesturing toward a neatly organized cart of medical supplies. "Physical therapy, medication, bathing when necessary. The schedule is posted here." Minjae stared at the cart, his pulse quickening. I'm not trained for this." "You'll learn." Her tone left no room for argument. "He requested you specifically." "He what?" But the woman was already walking away. Minjae stood alone in the hallway, his mind spinning. Seohyun had requested him? Why? He found Seohyun in the sunroom an hour later, staring out at the rain-soaked garden. The room was warm, filled with the scent of earth and green things growing. It should have been peaceful. But Minji's hands were shaking again. "You asked for me to take care of you," he said quietly. Seohyun didn't turn. "Would you rather I let them do it?" "I don't understand." "Then let me be clear." Seohyun's voice was calm, but there was something underneath it. Something fierce. "I don't trust anyone in this house, Minjae. Not the staff. Not my family. Not the people who smile to my face and pity me behind closed doors." He paused. "But you're different." Minji's breath caught. "You don't even know me." Seohyun finally turned his head, meeting Minji's eyes with that same unrelenting gaze. "Then help me change that. Does it hurt?" Seohyun's eyes flicked up from the book in his lap. Minjae knelt beside the wheelchair, a warm compress in his hands, hesitating over Seohyun's knee. "No," Seohyun said. "Go ahead." Minjae pressed the compress gently against the joint, his fingers careful, clinical. It had been 3 days since the wedding. 3 days of this routine, morning stretches, afternoon therapy, evening medication. 3 days of learning the geography of Seohyun's body through necessity, not intimacy. But something was shifting. Minjae felt it in the way Seohyun watched him. Not with suspicion, but with something quieter. Something that made Minji's hands unsteady. "You're good at this," Seohyun said. "I'm not." Minjae adjusted the compress, avoiding his gaze. "I looked up videos online. I'm just following instructions." "Still, you're gentle." The word settled between them like a stone dropped in still water. Minji's throat tightened. No one had ever called him that before. Weak, yes. Timid. Forgettable. But not gentle. He moved to the other leg, repeating the process. The sunroom was quiet except for the distant sound of rain and the soft rustle of pages as Seohyun returned to his book. Can I ask you something? Minjae said quietly. Why do you read so much? Seohyun's lips curved slightly. Not quite a smile, but close. Because I can't do much else. That's not true. Isn't it? Seohyun closed the book, his gaze settling on Minjae with an intensity that made his pulse skip. I can't walk. I can't leave this house without a spectacle. I can't even take a shower without help. He paused. So I read. And I watch. And I wait. For what? Seohyun didn't answer. Instead, he reached out, his fingers brushing Minji's wrist where it rested against his knee. The touch was light, almost absent, but it burned. Why do you flinch every time I look at you, Minjae? Minjae pulled back instinctively, the compress slipping from his hands. I don't. You do. Seohyun's voice was quiet, but it cut clean through the lie. You have since the first night. Like you're waiting for me to hurt you. That's not. Minjae stood abruptly, turning away. His heart hammered against his ribs. I should go check on your medication schedule. Minjae. He froze at the door. I'm not him. Minji's breath caught. What? Whoever hurt you before? Seohyun's voice was calm, but there was steel underneath. I'm not him. Minjae didn't turn around. He couldn't. Because if he did, Seohyun would see the truth written all over his face. That it wasn't fear of being hurt that made him flinch. It was guilt. The breaking point came 2 days later. Minjae had just finished helping Seohyun into the bath, a process that still left him flushed and awkward despite the clinical necessity, when he heard voices in the hallway. Loud ones. He stepped out of the bathroom, closing the door softly behind him, and found Seohyun's head of staff standing in the bedroom with another man. Minji's brother. Juno looked exactly as he always did, expensive suit, slicked back hair, a smile that never reached his eyes. He turned when Minjae entered, and that smile widened. There you are, little brother. Minji's stomach dropped. What are you doing here? Visiting. Is that a crime? Juno's gaze swept over him, taking in the plain clothes, the damp sleeves from the bath. You look domestic. It suits you, actually. Playing nurse to a cripple. The word landed like a slap. Get out, Minjae said quietly. Juno laughed. Relax. I'm not here to cause trouble. I just wanted to see how you were settling in. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. Mother's worried, you know. She thinks you might do something stupid. Embarrass the family. I won't. Good. Juno's hand shot out, gripping Minji's chin hard enough to hurt. Because if you do, it won't just be you who suffers. Remember that. Minjae jerked back, his heart pounding. But before he could respond, the bathroom door opened. Seohyun wheeled himself out, his hair still damp, his expression unreadable. But his eyes were cold fire. Touch him again, Seohyun said quietly. And I'll ruin your family's name so thoroughly, your children will still be paying for it. Juno's smile faltered. Excuse me? Seohyun wheeled forward, the movement slow and deliberate. You heard me. Get out of my house. You can't be serious. Ms. Kong, Seohyun said without raising his voice. The head of staff appeared in the doorway instantly. Escort Mr. Park off the property. If he returns, call security. Juno's face flushed red. He opened his mouth, closed it, then turned to Minjae. You'll regret this. No, Seohyun said, his voice like cut glass. You will. Juno left without another word, his footsteps echoing down the hallway. Ms. Kong followed, closing the door softly behind her. The silence that followed was deafening. Minjae stood frozen, his arms wrapped around himself, trembling. He couldn't look at Seohyun. Couldn't speak. Minjae. I'm sorry, Minjae whispered. I'm so sorry. I didn't know he would come here. I didn't. Stop. Seohyun's voice was gentler now. You have nothing to apologize for. But he's a coward. Seohyun wheeled closer. And he knows it. That's why he came here. To remind you that you're supposed to be afraid. But you're not anymore. Minjae finally looked up, his vision blurred. How do you know? Because you told him to leave. Seohyun's gaze was steady, unflinching. That took courage. Minji's laugh was bitter, broken. I didn't even mean it. I was just angry. Good. Seohyun reached out, his hand hovering near Minji's. Not touching. Just close. Be angry. It's better than being afraid. Minjae stared at that hand, strong, scarred, steady, and something inside him cracked. Why are you doing this? He whispered. Doing what? Protecting me. You don't even know me. You don't owe me anything. Seohyun was quiet for a long moment. Then, so softly Minjae almost missed it, he said, Maybe I want to. That night, Minjae couldn't sleep. He lay on the couch in the sitting room, staring at the ceiling, replaying the day over and over. Juno's voice. Seohyun's cold fury. The way Seohyun had looked at him afterward, like he was something worth protecting. It didn't make sense. None of this made sense. Minjae sat up, running his hands through his hair. He needed air. Needed to think. He slipped out of the room and down the hallway, past the library and the guest rooms, until he reached the glass doors that led to the covered terrace. The rain had stopped, but the air still smelled of wet earth and stone. He stepped outside, breathing deep. Couldn't sleep either? Minjae spun around. Seohyun sat in his wheelchair near the edge of the terrace, half hidden in shadow. He wasn't looking at Minjae. His gaze was fixed on the dark garden beyond. "I didn't know you were out here," Minjae said quietly. "I come here sometimes, when the house feels too small." Minjae moved closer, leaning against the railing. "Does it feel small often?" "More than I'd like." They stood in silence for a moment, the night pressing close around them. "Would you forgive someone who mistook your pain for love?" Minjae said suddenly, the words spilling out before he could stop them. "Comment below." Seohyun turned his head, frowning. "What?" Minjae flushed. "Nothing. He shook his head. "Forget it." But Seohyun was still watching him, that same careful intensity in his eyes. "You do that sometimes. Say things that sound like they're meant for someone else." "I'm sorry." "Don't be." Seohyun's voice was quieter now. "I'm just curious." Minjae looked away, his hands gripping the railing. "It's nothing. Just something I think about." "Mistaking pain for love?" Minji's throat tightened. "Yeah." Seohyun was silent for a long moment. Then, "I think people do that more often than they realize. Especially when they've been hurt for so long, they forget what kindness feels like." Minji's breath hitched. "But I also think," Seohyun continued, his gaze returning to the garden, "that recognizing the difference is the first step to healing." Minjae turned to look at him, his chest aching. "Have you? Healed, I mean." Seohyun's smile was faint, sad. "Not yet. But I'm trying." The honesty of it broke something open inside Minjae. He wanted to tell him everything. Wanted to confess the secret that had been choking him for 2 years. But the words wouldn't come. Instead, he whispered, "Thank you." "For what?" "For today. For standing up to my brother." "For?" Minjae swallowed hard. "For making me feel like I'm not alone." Seohyun finally turned to face him fully, and in the dim light, his expression was unbearably gentle. "You're not alone, Minjae." He paused, his voice dropping. "Not anymore." The routine continued. Morning stretches. Afternoon therapy. Evening medication. But something had changed. Seohyun spoke more now. Asked questions. Shared small pieces of himself. His favorite books, his childhood memories, the things he missed about walking. And Minjae found himself answering. Carefully at first, then with more ease. He told Seohyun about his love of photography, his dream of traveling somewhere far away, the way he used to sneak out to the park at night just to feel free. He didn't tell him about the attack. But he wanted to. One afternoon, as Minjae helped Seohyun through his stretches, Seohyun asked, "Are you safe with me, Minjae?" Minji's hands stilled. "What?" "Not just physically." Seohyun's gaze was steady, searching. "Emotionally. Do you feel safe here?" Minji's heart hammered. No one had ever asked him that before. His voice cracked. "I don't know. I've never been safe anywhere." Seohyun's expression softened, something raw and unguarded crossing his face. "Then let me be the first place you are." Minjae stared at him, his breath caught in his chest. And for the first time since the wedding, he felt the weight of his secret shift. Not disappear, but shift. Seohyun reached out slowly, giving Minjae time to pull away. When he didn't, Seohyun's fingers closed gently around his. "You don't have to tell me everything right now," Seohyun said quietly. "But when you're ready, I'll listen." Minji's eyes burned. He nodded, unable to speak. And in that moment, he realized something terrifying. He was starting to trust him. "Stay." Minjae froze at the bedroom door, his hand on the handle. It was late, past midnight, and he'd just finished helping Seohyun prepare for bed. The routine had become familiar over the past 2 weeks, almost comfortable, but tonight felt different. Seohyun sat on the edge of the mattress, his wheelchair folded beside him. He looked tired, shadows deepening the lines around his eyes, but his gaze was clear. "Stay where?" Minjae asked quietly. "Here. In this room." Seohyun's voice was calm, measured. "Not because I need help. Just stay." Minji's pulse quickened. "I don't think." I'm not asking you to do anything, Minjae. Seohyun shifted, wincing slightly as he adjusted his position. I just don't want to be alone tonight. The honesty of it cut through every excuse Minjae had prepared. He stood there, caught between the door and the vulnerability in Seohyun's expression, until finally he nodded. Okay. He helped Seohyun settle against the pillows, then retreated to the armchair by the window. The room was dim, lit only by the soft glow of the bedside lamp. Outside, rain began again, a gentle rhythm against the glass. You don't have to sit all the way over there, Seohyun said. Minji's hands tightened on the armrests. I'm fine here. Are you? Seohyun turned his head on the pillow, watching him. Or are you just maintaining distance because you think you're supposed to? Minjae didn't answer. He couldn't. Because Seohyun was right. Come here, Seohyun said softly. Please. Minjae stood slowly, crossing the room on unsteady legs. He sat on the edge of the bed, careful to keep space between them, his hands folded in his lap. Seohyun's gaze traced his face, gentle and searching. You don't owe me anything, Minjae. Not your time. Not your comfort. Not your presence. He paused. But if you want to stay, stay because you want to. Not because you think you have to. Minji's throat tightened. What if I don't know the difference anymore? Then we'll figure it out together. The words settled between them like an offering. Minjae looked down at his hands, at the faint tremor he couldn't quite control. I'm scared, he whispered. Of me? Of this? Minji's voice cracked. Of feeling safe. Because every time I felt safe before, it was taken away. Seohyun was quiet for a long moment. Then slowly he reached out. His fingers brushed Minji's wrist, light as breath. I can't promise you nothing will ever hurt you again. I can't even promise I won't make mistakes. His thumb traced a small circle against Minji's pulse point. But I can promise I'll never deliberately take your safety away. Minji's eyes burned. He turned his hand over, letting their palms touch. The contact was warm, grounding. Why do you care? He asked. You barely know me. Seohyun's smile was faint, sad. Maybe that's why. Because I see you trying so hard to be invisible, and I wonder, who taught you that survival meant disappearing? The question broke something open inside Minjae. He looked away, blinking hard against the tears threatening to spill. Everyone, he whispered. Everyone taught me that. Seohyun's fingers tightened around his. Then let me teach you something different. Minjae woke to sunlight streaming through the windows and the realization that he'd fallen asleep on Seohyun's bed. Not in it. He'd stayed sitting, his back against the headboard, Seohyun's hands still loosely clasped in his. He pulled away carefully, his heart hammering. Seohyun was still asleep, his breathing deep and even, his face relaxed in a way Minjae had never seen before. He looked younger like this. Softer. Human. Minjae slipped out of the room before he could wake, his chest tight with something he couldn't name. The morning passed in a blur. Breakfast. Therapy. The quiet rhythm of their routine. But Minjae couldn't stop thinking about the night before, about the weight of Seohyun's hand in his, the quiet promise in his voice. That afternoon, as Minjae helped him into the wheelchair after stretches, Seohyun caught his wrist. What are you thinking about? He asked. Minjae startled. Nothing. You're a terrible liar. Seohyun's thumb brushed against the inside of his wrist, just once. You've been somewhere else all day. Minjae pulled away, busying himself with adjusting the footrests. I'm just tired. Minjae. The gentleness in his voice made Minjae stop. He looked up, meeting Seohyun's gaze reluctantly. Talk to me, Seohyun said. Please. Minji's hands trembled. What if I told you I'm not who you think I am? Seohyun tilted his head, his expression unreadable. What does that mean? It means. Minjae swallowed hard. There are things about me you don't know. Things that might change how you see me. Everyone has things they don't share, Minjae. That doesn't make you a different person. But what if it does? Minji's voice rose despite himself. What if everything you think you know about me is wrong? Seohyun was quiet for a moment, his gaze steady. Then, tell me one true thing about yourself. Right now. Minjae blinked. What? One true thing. Something you've never told anyone. Minji's heart pounded. He looked down at his hands, at the faint scars across his knuckles from an accident years ago. I used to want to disappear. Completely. I thought if I could just stop existing, everything would be easier. The confession hung in the air, raw and bleeding. And now? Seohyun asked quietly. Minji's breath hitched. Now. I'm not sure anymore. Seohyun reached out, his fingers brushing Minji's jaw with infinite care. I already know you're more than what they made you believe, Minjae. Whatever you're hiding, it won't change that. Minjae closed his eyes, leaning into the touch despite himself. You don't know that. Yes, Seohyun said softly. I do. 3 days later, the fragile piece shattered. Minjae was in the library, searching for a book Seohyun had requested, when he heard voices in the hallway. One of them was Seohyun's mother. He'd only met her once, at the wedding. She'd looked at him like he was something distasteful, something to be tolerated for the sake of appearances. Minjae moved toward the door, intending to slip out quietly, but her words stopped him cold. You can't seriously be getting attached to that boy. His name is Minjae. Seohyun's voice was cool, controlled. And what I feel is none of your concern. Everything you do is my concern. You're still my son, even if, she stopped herself. This marriage was supposed to be temporary. A formality. You were never meant to actually care about him. Minji's breath caught. He pressed himself against the wall, his hands shaking. Then maybe you should have chosen someone less easy to care about, Seohyun said quietly. Don't be foolish. He's an omega from a family drowning in debt. He's here because he has no other options. Do you really think he'd stay if he had a choice? The silence that followed felt like a knife between Minji's ribs. Get out, Seohyun said finally, his voice flat. Seohyun. I said get out. Minjae heard footsteps, then the sharp click of heels fading down the hallway. He stood frozen, his vision blurring, her words echoing in his skull. He's here because he has no other options. It was true. All of it was true. And somehow that made it worse. He slipped out of the library through the side door, making his way back to his room on autopilot. His chest felt tight, his throat raw, his hands trembling so badly he could barely turn the doorknob. He collapsed onto the couch, pulling his knees to his chest, trying to breathe through the panic clawing up his throat. A knock sounded at the door. Minjae! Seohyun's voice was muffled. Are you in there? Minjae didn't answer. He couldn't. The door opened. Seohyun wheeled himself inside, his expression creased with concern. I saw you leave the library. Did you? He stopped, his gaze sharpening. You heard. Minjae looked away, his arms tightening around his knees. Seohyun moved closer, stopping just in front of the couch. Whatever she said. She's right. Minji's voice was hollow. I am here because I have no other options. My family sold me to yours to clear their debts. That's the truth. And, Seohyun's tone was careful. Does that change anything between us? It should. Minji's laugh was bitter. You deserve someone who chose you. Not someone who was forced. Minjae, look at me. Minjae shook his head. Please. The quiet desperation in Seohyun's voice finally made him look up. Seohyun's expression was open, unguarded in a way that made Minji's chest ache. I don't care how you got here, Seohyun said quietly. I care that you're here now. That you stay, even when you don't have to. That you talk to me, take care of me, trust me enough to let me see you. He paused, his gaze holding Minji's. That's not obligation. That's choice. Minji's breath hitched. How can you be sure? Because I know what obligation looks like. I've lived with it my entire life. Seohyun reached out, his hand hovering near Minji's. This doesn't feel like that. Minjae stared at that hand, steady, open, waiting, and felt something crack inside him. I don't know how to do this, he whispered. Do what? Let someone in. Trust that it's real. Seohyun's smile was gentle, heartbreaking. Then let's figure it out together. One day at a time. Minji's vision blurred. Before he could stop himself, he reached out, his fingers curling around Seohyun's. The contact was warm, grounding, real. Have you ever loved again after loss? Minjae whispered. Share your story in the comments. Seohyun frowned slightly. Minjae. Sorry. Minjae shook his head, a broken laugh escaping. I don't know why I keep doing that. It's okay. Seohyun squeezed his hand gently. You don't have to explain everything right now. They sat in silence for a long moment, hands clasped, the weight of unspoken things pressing close. Finally, Minjae whispered, Seohyun. What if I told you I was there? The night you were attacked. Seohyun went very still. What? Minji's voice shook. I was there. I saw it happen. And he stopped, the words choking him. I ran. I left you there and I ran. The confession hung between them, sharp and jagged. Seohyun's grip on his hand didn't loosen. If anything, it tightened. Why are you telling me this now? Because you deserve to know. Minji's eyes burned. Because I can't keep lying to you. Because, his voice cracked. Because you've been so good to me, and I don't deserve it. Seohyun was quiet for a long time. Then, slowly, he pulled Minjae's hand toward him, pressing it against his chest. His heartbeat was steady beneath Minjae's palm. Listen to me, Seohyun said quietly. Whatever happened that night, you were scared. You survived. That doesn't make you a coward. It makes you human. Minjae shook his head, tears spilling over. You don't understand. Then help me understand. Seohyun's voice was gentle but firm. But not tonight. Tonight, just stay with me. Can you do that? Minjae nodded, unable to speak. Seohyun guided him onto the bed, never letting go of his hand. They lay facing each other in the dim light, the space between them small but deliberate. Thank you, Seohyun whispered, for trusting me enough to tell me. Minji's chest ached. I'm sorry. Don't be. Seohyun's thumb traced slow circles against his knuckles. We all carry things we're ashamed of. But you don't have to carry them alone anymore. Minjae closed his eyes, exhaustion and relief washing over him in equal measure. And for the first time in 2 years, he slept without nightmares. You're awake. Minji's eyes snapped open. The room was dark except for a sliver of moonlight cutting across the floor. He'd fallen asleep in Seohyun's bed again, their hands still loosely intertwined. But something was wrong. The bed beside him was empty. Minjae sat up, his heart pounding. Seohyun. No answer. He swung his legs off the mattress, his bare feet hitting cold hardwood. The wheelchair sat folded against the wall, untouched. Panic clawed up his throat. He moved toward the door, then froze. Footsteps. Slow. Steady. Coming from the hallway. Minji's breath caught. He turned toward the sound, his pulse roaring in his ears. The door opened, and Seohyun walked in. Walked. No wheelchair. No assistance. Just 2 steady steps, then 3, his hand braced against the doorframe, but his legs were moving. Minjae stumbled backward, his vision swimming. What? Seohyun stopped, his expression unreadable in the shadows. I've been waiting for you to confess. The words hit like a physical blow. Minji's knees buckled, his hand shooting out to grip the edge of the dresser. You can walk? I've always been able to walk. Seohyun's voice was calm, almost gentle. I just chose not to. Minji's chest constricted. He couldn't breathe. Couldn't think. Why? Seohyun took another step forward, and Minjae flinched back. The movement made something flash across Seohyun's face. Pain, maybe, or regret, but it was gone too quickly to name. Because I needed to know the truth, Seohyun said quietly. About who attacked me. About why. He paused. About you. About me? Minji's voice cracked. You've been lying to me this entire time because of me? I wasn't lying about everything. Seohyun moved closer, his movements careful, deliberate. The attack was real. The injuries were real. I just recovered faster than anyone knew. Minjae shook his head, his vision blurring. So what you pretended? You let me take care of you, let me touch you, let me. His voice broke. Was any of it real? All of it was real. Seohyun's tone was fierce now, urgent. Every conversation. Every moment. The only lie was the wheelchair. That's not a small lie, Seohyun. Minji's hands shook. I trusted you. I told you things I've never told anyone. And you, he couldn't finish. The betrayal was suffocating. Seohyun stopped a few feet away, his jaw tight. You're right. I should have told you sooner. But I couldn't risk. He stopped himself, his expression hardening. I had to be sure. Sure of what? That you weren't the one who tried to kill me. The accusation hung in the air like poison. Minji's breath left him in a rush. You thought I? At first, yes. Seohyun's gaze was steady, unflinching. Your family owed mine a fortune. You were at the scene. And when they arranged our marriage so quickly after the attack. He trailed off. It seemed too convenient. Minjae felt like he was drowning. So you married me to what? Keep your enemy close. To keep you safe. The words stopped Minjae cold. What? Seohyun's expression shifted, something raw breaking through. The more I watched you, the more I realized you weren't a threat. You were terrified. Guilty. Hiding something, yes, but not what I expected. He took another step closer. And then I started digging. Started following the threads. And I found out the truth. What truth? Minjae whispered. Seohyun reached into his pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. He held it out. Minjae took it with trembling hands, unfolding it slowly. It was a photograph, old, grainy, printed from security footage. It showed Minjae walking down a dark street. And behind him, barely visible in the shadows, was a figure with a gun. "The night I was attacked," Seohyun said quietly, "you weren't the witness, Minjae. You were the target." Minji's legs gave out. He collapsed onto the edge of the bed, the photograph slipping from his fingers. "No, that's not. I took the bullet meant for you." Seohyun knelt in front of him, his movements slow, careful. "I was following you that night because I'd received a tip about a potential threat to my family's business partners." "Your family?" He paused. "I didn't know who you were then. I just saw someone about to be killed, and I reacted." Minjae shook his head, his entire body trembling. "Why would anyone want to kill me?" "Because your brother made a deal he couldn't keep." Seohyun's voice was hard now. "He borrowed money from the wrong people. Used your name as collateral. When he couldn't pay, he didn't finish. So they came for me instead." Minji's voice was hollow. "Yes. And you," Minjae looked up, his vision swimming. "You saved me. And I left you there to die. You were in shock. You didn't know what was happening." Seohyun's hand hovered near Minji's knee, not touching. "But the people who wanted you dead, they're still out there. That's why I agreed to the marriage. To keep you close. To keep you protected." Minji's chest felt like it was caving in. "So this whole time, everything you said, everything you did, it was just protection?" "No." Seohyun's voice was fierce. "At first, maybe. But then I started to know you. The real you. And he stopped, his jaw working. "I stopped caring about the reasons and started caring about you." Minji's breath hitched. "How am I supposed to believe that? You've been lying to me from the beginning." "I know." Seohyun's expression was raw, open. "And I'm sorry. I should have told you sooner. But I was afraid that if you knew the truth, you'd leave. And I couldn't," his voice cracked. "I couldn't let you go." Minjae stared at him, his heart breaking and reforming all at once. "You should have trusted me." "You're right." Seohyun reached out slowly, his fingers brushing Minji's cheek. "But I'm trusting you now. With all of it. The truth. The danger. Everything." Minjae closed his eyes, leaning into the touch despite himself. "I don't know if I can do this." "Then don't decide right now." Seohyun's thumb traced the line of his jaw. "Just stay. Let me keep you safe. And when you're ready, we'll figure out the rest." Minjae opened his eyes, meeting Seohyun's gaze. "What if I'm never ready? Then I'll wait." Seohyun's smile was sad, gentle. "As long as it takes." The next morning, everything fell apart. Minjae woke alone again, but this time he found Seohyun in the sitting room, standing by the window. The sight still felt surreal, wrong and right all at once. "Your family is coming," Seohyun said without turning. "They know I can walk." Minji's stomach dropped. "How?" "Someone in the house told them." Seohyun's voice was flat. "They'll be here within the hour." "What do they want?" "To take you back." Seohyun finally turned, his expression grim. "They think the marriage is invalid now. That I deceived them. Didn't you?" "Yes." Seohyun crossed the room, stopping in front of Minjae. "But I'm not letting them take you. Not now. Not ever. You can't stop them." "Yes, I can." Seohyun's voice was steel. "I have enough evidence of your brother's debts, his deals, his crimes to ruin your entire family. And I'll use it if I have to." Minji's breath caught. "That would destroy them. They were willing to let you die, Minjae." Seohyun's gaze burned. "Why do you still want to protect them?" "Because they're all I have." "No." Seohyun stepped closer, his hands cupping Minji's face with infinite care. "They're all you had. Now you have me." Minji's vision blurred. "You can't promise that." "Yes, I can." Seohyun's voice dropped, fierce and tender. "I exposed your truth so I could protect it. So I could protect you. And I'll keep doing it every day for as long as you'll let me." Before Minjae could respond, voices echoed from downstairs. Loud. Angry. His family had arrived. Seohyun's jaw tightened. "Stay here." "No." Minjae grabbed his wrist. "If you're going to face them, I'm coming with you." "Minjae, I'm done hiding." Minji's voice was steadier now, stronger. "You said I had a choice. So I'm choosing. I'm choosing you." Seohyun stared at him for a long moment, something blazing in his eyes. Then he nodded. "Together, then." They descended the stairs side by side. Minji's mother stood in the foyer, his brother beside her, both of them flanked by two men in expensive suits. Lawyers, probably. His mother's gaze swept over Seohyun with cold calculation. "So it's true. You've been deceiving us." "Yes." Seohyun's voice was calm, unbothered. "And I'd do it again." Juno stepped forward, his smile sharp. "Then the marriage contract is void. Minjae is coming home." No, he's not. Everyone turned to stare at Minjae. His heart pounded, but he forced himself to meet his brother's gaze. I'm staying, Minjae said. With Seohyun. His mother's expression hardened. You don't have a choice. He does. Seohyun moved to stand beside Minjae, his presence solid and unwavering. And if you try to take him, I'll release every piece of evidence I have about your son's criminal activities. The embezzlement, the illegal loans, the attempted murder conspiracy. Juno's face went white. You're bluffing. Try me. Seohyun's smile was cold. I have documents, recordings, witnesses. Enough to put you away for 20 years. You wouldn't. I would. Seohyun's hand found Minji's, their fingers intertwining. For him, I would burn your entire world down. The silence that followed was deafening. Finally, his mother turned to Minjae, her expression unreadable. Is this really what you want? To stay with him? Minjae looked at Seohyun, at the man who'd lied to protect him, who'd saved him before they'd even met, who'd looked at him like he was worth something. Yes, Minjae said. It is. His mother's lips thinned. Then you're no longer part of this family. The words should have hurt. Maybe they did somewhere deep. But mostly Minjae just felt free. I know, he said quietly. His mother turned and walked out without another word. Juno followed, his expression murderous, the lawyers trailing behind. The door closed. Minji's legs gave out. Seohyun caught him, pulling him close, one arm wrapped around his waist. I've got you, Seohyun whispered. I've got you. Minjae buried his face in Seohyun's shoulder, his body shaking. Not with fear. With relief. With grief. With something that felt dangerously close to hope. Thank you, he whispered. Seohyun pulled back just enough to look at him, his expression fierce and tender. I exposed your truth, Minjae. Now let me be the one to save you. Not because you need saving. Because I need you. Minji's breath hitched. Then stop standing like you're guarding me. Stand with me. Seohyun's smile was small, real, devastating. Always. He leaned forward, his forehead resting against Minji's. Their breath mingled, close and careful. Can I? Seohyun started. Yes, Minjae whispered. The kiss was gentle. Tentative. A question and an answer all at once. Seohyun's hand cupped Minji's face, his touch reverent, and Minjae melted into it, his fingers curling into Seohyun's shirt. When they finally pulled apart, Seohyun whispered, What happens now? Minji's smile was fragile but genuine. Now we rewrite the ending they tried to give us. Together. Together. They stood in the empty foyer, hands clasped, the morning light streaming through the windows. And for the first time in his life, Minjae felt like he was exactly where he was supposed to be. But first, Seohyun said quietly, his expression darkening, we find out who wanted you dead. Because they're still out there. Minjae nodded, his grip tightening. Then let's find them. The camera pulled back slowly, framing them in the light. Two figures standing together, ready to face whatever came next. Black screen. End of part 1.